Well, hello, guys. We are definitely after midnight tonight. I got my ass kicked at work, so bear with me. It was a hot one. It was very, just, I don't want to talk about it. Saturday nights are the worst for people in the service industry. It's the worst. But we're here now, and this is the best. So I'm excited. So we are, this is our Secret Teachings of Jesus segment that we do every week. I also refer to it as our Saturday night secret sermon. Usually happens really late night, after midnight, which is good because sages study late at night because the veil is thin, and there's a lot of mystical secrets and things going on, but it is very effective and potent to study sacred wisdom and sacred texts late in the night. It provides an extra layer of light and protection around you during a what would be a more vulnerable time of day. All right. So we've been studying out of the Nag Hammadi scriptures, looking into the Gnostic Gospels. Some of these writings are not necessarily technically Gnostic in genre, but they get grouped together in the overall generalization of Gnostics. So I don't know why I thought that was worth mentioning. We're currently in the Gospel of Thomas. So Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Philip are both very similar in that they are 100% centered on the actual teachings of Jesus and not the activities of Jesus or the places that Jesus went and the dialogues that he had with people. But these were concepts and things that he said that he taught. So in the Gospel of Thomas, in the Gospel of Philip, there's these sort of paragraphs of cryptic text that are very esoteric and encoded, and they're meant to be meditated on. They're a little bit longer, whereas in the Gospel of Thomas, these are really short sayings. Some of them are a little bit more like paragraphs, but a lot of them are just a couple of sentences. And so instead of being titled like they are in the Gospel of Philip, these are just numbered. And so we are currently, last week we did number 18, and so now that brings us to saying 19. And then we've also done the Gospel of Mary, for instance, was a lot more like some of the other Gospels where there's more conversation happening and a little bit more dialogue, a little bit of scene work, if you will. But those were all super fun, and we really take our time with these. So if you are interested in this kind of thing, check out the playlist on the channel, Secret Teachings of Jesus, and then that will be chock full of hundreds of videos, keep you busy. So let's get into the material. I'm excited. So we are in saying 19. I will read this to you a couple of times and let the imagery sink in, and then we will unpack. Okay. So Jesus said, "Blessed is one who came into being before coming into being. If you become my disciples and listen to my sayings, these stones will serve you. For there are 5 trees in paradise for you. They do not change. Summer, winter, their leaves do not fall. Whoever knows them will not taste death." It's a lot to take in. And then there are a couple of footnotes, and we'll get into that too. So I'm going to read it a couple more times just to let the words sink in, and then we will unpack with footnotes and thoughts. Okay. So Jesus said, "Blessed is one who came into being before coming into being. If you become my disciples and listen to my sayings, these stones will serve you. For there are 5 trees in paradise for you. They do not change, summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. Whoever knows them will not taste death. Okay, so let's start with the first line. Jesus said, "Blessed is one who came into being before coming into being." So I think that this is having to do with blessed is a person who can awaken in their spirit while they are on this earth in the flesh, before they leave the flesh suit and return back to the state of their perfected spirit and soul in heaven. I mean, the soul is always something that's a work in progress that we take along with us, but our spirit is always pristine and perfect and whole and complete. So our spirit self is like our ultimate divine human self. It's what Jesus calls the true human. It's like a true human is someone who has taken on the flesh form, but they are fully awakened to the light of their soul and the consciousness of their spirit. And they have done the soul correction, and they're spiritually awakened. They know who they are. They know their true identity. They remember the veil has been lifted. And so then that true human has purged themselves of all of like the things that contaminate our consciousness and render our divine talents and abilities ineffective. And so once we've done that correction and we've been cleansed, for lack of a better word, not that we're dirty and shameful, but just because it's like having ink dropped in water. The negativity, the negative thoughts, the doubt, it all dilutes our capacity to be our super vessel, right? Think about the X-Men, and like, what is that show with like, what is his name? Outlander? Am I thinking of just Outlander, the show? Like, what is the Homelander? Homelander, right? These shows where, or these like fantasy worlds where these people have like these awakened dormant abilities and they become almost like mutants, right? Well, it's kind of like that. It's like once we activate our soul and we connect that into our consciousness, it's like, when you hear the electricity kick on, it turns something on inside of us. And when we're rid finally of all the negativity that leaves all this like spiritual soot and grime that builds up that makes our powers ineffective, then we can finally be like Jesus and put our hands on someone and say they're healed, and they would be healed. Or we could tell the water to hold us up and walk on water. Like, we would rise above the laws of nature. Even now, we are under the influence of the astrological weather dictated by the celestial bodies and their relation to one another, right? Like the planets and the constellations are all, doing stuff, and they're like antennas sending like potent concentrated energies around us that provoke our psyche and our emotions, right? So we think as people that we're just at the mercy of like the astrology and what's going on. And to some degree we are, until we become awakened and we start to like own and embody more spiritual sovereignty. And so then at that point, when we have more control, self-control, we're not at the mercy of what's going on in the astrology. It doesn't affect us as much because we're already proactively doing the correction of lessening the effects of the lesser nature of each of the signs, if that makes sense. So blessed is one who came into being before coming into being. So when most of the time, most people who just float through life, they're kind of like what I call like non-playable characters, sort of like in The Sims or whatever. It's just like they're just like background people or whatever. And the others of us awaken, and then like we understand that we are proactive co-creators, and that it's sort of like we're going through this matrix of choose your own adventure in a way, but other things are already predestined, and our free will is exercised in how we navigate the things that are already predestined, how we show up. What consciousness do we carry? What are our thoughts and desires? That's the main thing, because many of our actions are already written in the script. But what are the thoughts and desires behind those actions? What are our motives? What's going on in the inside when we take those actions and maybe afterwards, right? So, blessed is one who awakens in this life. So once we expire here and we leave our flesh suit behind and we rise out of the body and we are in the upper worlds and we ascend into heaven, there's no more free will, because the veil is completely removed. We see the fullness of everything. And that's why nobody ever, like when you hear people talk about like near-death experiences, rarely do they want to come back, because once they get there, everything's so wonderful. Everything is nothing but wholeness and paradise and unconditional love and a feeling of completeness and finally being at rest, finally feeling like you're at home in your natural habitat. The problem is that once you don't have any free will anymore, you can't do anything to correct the nature of your soul. You are as evolved as you can be, and the light of your soul is as revealed as it's going to be. The only way that we can correct our soul and overcome the influence of the ego and program ourselves with the consciousness of the spirit is to be in this physical material world, interacting with other people, overcoming our bullshit. And once we're dead, we can see everything clearly. We can see the 360, perspective. We can see with hindsight. Like, there's no free will anymore because there's no illusion. So when we're here and the stakes are high and we think everything counts and we're being pushed under pressure, it's like, this is when it counts. So once you have, and you need the light of your soul revealed, because that's what's going to help you navigate and get by in the afterlife, right? So then you're like in the afterlife, and you're like, shit, I need to come down and incarnate into a whole nother life because I didn't deal with that anger issue that's keeping me anchored and, not able to fully, be my full and true fullness once, so it's like you just keep having to come back and like keep repeating the assignments until they're finally done. Now, when you're a person who's awakened and you're actually trying to change and you see what a wretch you are and how hard it is to change, even when you're trying really hard and you're like getting all the support you can with all the tools you can from the Creator, you're like, holy shit, I should have started doing all of this when I was 5. I should have been starting before it even counted. It takes a lifetime. It's a work in progress over a lifetime, over many lifetimes, right? And so when you you look around at the people who are like non-playable characters, and they're not awakened at all, and they think that life is just about shopping and taking off to go on vacation and occasionally going to a concert, and nothing wrong with these things, but the people who are just completely surface level people, and that's their whole life is just my next social engagement, keeping up with things around the house, seeing the people that I'm related to or that I know that I'm proximity to, but they're not like working on their deep soul aspects. They're not even aware of them, let alone thinking about how they're going to navigate the afterlife. They may not even believe in the afterlife. And then you're like, whoa, they're going to be disoriented. It is going to be awful for them. You think, wow, what a waste. You haven't done any of this. You haven't become awakened yet. Woe to you. God, well, what about when you meet the keepers of the gates beyond this, and they're giving you these cryptic questions, like, that are going to depend whether or not you get to go through. Like, you're not going to know anything. You didn't reveal any light in this life, So every time shit hits the fan and things get difficult or provoked and all this stuff, it's good because it's showing us our darkness that needs to be transformed and alchemized so that we're free and we're not bound to this material life, but that we can be free to ascend into the upper realms, right? So blessed is one who came into being before coming into being, because once you die, it's like you go back into your original form, right? It's like you've come into being, right? This is your fullness. But it's like you need to come into fullness on earth while it counts. And so then there's even a place in a different, I think it's in Philip maybe, that Jesus says, blessed is one who changes while they're young and doesn't wait till they get old. And it's because, like, yeah, when you're old and you don't have any desire anymore, you're not trying to go scare up a bunch of tail and get into a bunch of trouble and get into a bunch of fights and tell a bunch of lies and, be a titan of industry and step all over everybody it takes to get ahead. It's like, obviously you're not going to do that shit then. You're too tired. You're too old. Unless you're in the current administration, these people will never expire. They never run out of energy because they're demon fueled. But you know what I'm saying? So it's like, God is like sitting there waiting when you're young and beautiful to be virtuous then, right? When you're actually making an impact and making waves and you have your beauty and all of your resources and faculties and your full potential and talents ahead of you. Awaken then so you can be a maximum vessel to fulfill your like greatest potential, and do it while you're hot. Then people wait until they're old and then they're like, well, I guess I'll start going to church now. And God's like, big whoop. I wanted to date you when you were young. Now you don't have anything else to do. You're afraid you're going to die. There's nobody around. You need people around you to help you. So now you go to church and now you're afraid of death and now you're afraid of what's going to happen in the afterlife. So what? Now you want to suck up to me? Now you want to be friends? Now you want something? Now you want to have an easy, graceful aging process. And so what? You're here now? Where were you back then? Better late than never, right? But you see the difference. It's like, it's a better deal. You're doing more when it's harder, when there's more temptation to be bad. It's a bigger deal when you can change your wretchedness then, right? Not later when you're too old and nobody wants you anyway. You're wallowing in your diapers again. It's like, God's like, big whoop. Oh my gosh, he's not really, but you know what I mean. Okay, so God's like, big whoop, get out of my face, you old sack of corpse dust. Oh, you old geezer, not impressed. Suck up, too late, too little, too late. No, you're okay. So you're still better late than never, right? Okay. So Jesus says, blessed is one who came into being before coming into being. If you become my disciples and listen to my sayings, these stones will serve you. Stones and rocks. It's like, that's one of those things that gets thrown around. And then when you're like, this is kind of a significant thing that's always coming up. Yeah, I'll build my house upon the rock. And then we're like, yeah, it's like, your values, your wisdom, your faith. But then it's like, well, Peter was called the rock. And he was named the rock from Simon. And then at first you're like, okay, so it's Peter's like solid. He's going to be the foundation that the church is built on. He's like the leader. He's like, he's like, a good manager. Like he's strong. He's gonna, he's got leadership skills. Like he's gonna carry the church. But then you get to know Peter, Simon Peter, in some of the gospels, like for particularly another side of him gets revealed in the Gospel of Mary, and you're like, wow, Peter is a donkey of a man, and he's also thick as rocks. He's never understands what's going on. He never gets the concept. And so I thought that was interesting. And I was like, maybe he was called Peter because he's as dumb as a rock. Jesus was kind of laughing at him a little bit. And then I had this other thought about like, so rocks in the four living kingdoms, like the mineral kingdom, the rock kingdom is like the lowest kingdom, because that kingdom has the least desire. It has the least consciousness. It has the least ability to move and be effective. It's just kind of like it's just there. And so I'm like, gosh, there's so many things about like that, the negative aspect, or like, you know, the lesser aspect of the rock that reminds me of Peter also. So then you're like, okay, Peter is Mr. Thick Rock guy. But then also what's interesting too is that in the wilderness, God tells Moses to speak to the rock and call forth water. But instead, Moses disobeys God and he strikes the rock with his staff, I think 2 times. And then from the rock pours forth water. Well, the rock is a vessel through which the water flows through. The water is associated with the oral Torah, right? So it's like the rock is like pouring forth this flow, and a lot of times like flowing water will represent like your understanding, your consciousness that's flowing. It's like you're getting it, your comprehension. So that whole striking the rock instead of speaking to it has to do later with the fact that like we couldn't just automatically understand the secrets of the Torah as like they just like flow through us. We were forced to have to labor and toil over study and digging through mysteries to understand the Torah. So it's like we were kind of cursed to toil over the Torah rather than having it just flow. Like everybody has this like knowledge that's just within them. I mean, and it's just not awakened. And if you can awaken it, then you can find ways to tap into that through the revelation coming forth. So, if you become my disciples and listen to my sayings, these stones will serve you. So the understanding of the oral Torah, right? When the oral Torah is when they talk about the principles hidden within the Torah. And so things come out there, and then these are like legends and parables and things that are passed down word to word, like by mouth. And then there's a saying that they described like certain sages teaching their students, even after death, their spirit would come and teach what would be called mouth to mouth to their students. So this is like the oral tradition. So when it talks about Jesus kissing Mary on the mouth, often it makes me wonder if this wasn't a way to sort of hint at the fact that he would give her oral teachings, like his secret teachings he would pass down to her orally. And this was a tradition of teaching to like protect sacred wisdom that wasn't appropriate for the general public to discover. So they would keep things hidden by passing it down orally, very carefully, very precisely from teacher to student. And even like a Siddiq or a righteous person, after they would pass away, their students would still be studying. They could connect with their teacher, and it was like they would be transmitting their teachings telepathically. So when we consider how things can vary from translations from like Aramaic to Greek to Hebrew, it's very possible that when they're like Jesus would kiss Mary on the mouth, it could be the clunky translation that had gone back and forth between like Aramaic and Greek, and then maybe it was trying to communicate that he was giving her wisdom and teachings and intimate relations mouth to mouth. Because that's how they worded it, mouth to mouth, like a kiss, mouth to mouth. But so you could see how that would be, you know, maybe has layered meanings, and they mean this, you know, they both are true side by side, or it could be an issue of misinterpretation. That's just my observation recently. So, if you become my disciples and listen to my sayings, these stones will serve you. So if you listen to Jesus, you listen to his teachings, the stones will serve you. The understanding of his teachings, the consciousness coming out of the teachings, the light that you reveal through dealing with the Torah and connecting with that word of God, including the oral Torah, it awakens this light that pours forth out of you, and it helps you transform your nature, transform the person that you are behaving in the world as, and then it changes the world around you, right? So Jesus said, blessed is one who came into being before coming into being. If you become my disciples and listen to my words, listen to my sayings, these stones will serve you. Now, if you become my disciples, this isn't just if you passively listen as students in the audience. This is disciples. The disciples walked with Jesus on the path. It's interesting too, because I was like thinking, why didn't they have, like, why I wonder why they couldn't get a wagon? I mean, I guess that's a luxury back then or whatever, but it's very clear that they walked from place to place, you know, and it's like this journey, this consciousness is not like a one and done deal. And it's not just going to social time a couple of days a week at whatever house of worship, right? It is a consciousness, a yoke that one takes on. And it's a practice that one has to be present with throughout every day. And any day can be a graceful day or a bad day. Any moment can be a graceful moment or a bad moment. You know, we're on and off, up and down all the time. We're inconsistent. The more we radiate with an eternal consistency, the more influential and powerful we are vibrationally, right? It's a stronger signal. But we're all over the place. We're the moon. The moon has no light of its own. It reflects the light of the sun, and it waxes and it wanes, up and down, full and empty, right? So if you become my disciples, really like being present and actually bringing this consciousness in to your moment-to-moment decisions and your moment-to-moment consciousness, being aware of your thoughts. Am I nurturing the wrong thoughts right now? Am I nurturing the wrong emotions right now? Am I choosing the wrong consciousness? Am I about to take a reactive action? Is this coming from my ego? Is this coming from a place of sharing? Is this coming from a place of the greater good is at stake, right? Now, there's a reference over to the Gospel of later in the Gospel of Thomas here, and this is one of the more famous things that people recognize, I think, from the Gospel of Thomas, but this portion where Jesus said, I am the light that is over all things. I am all. From me, all has come forth. And to me, all has reached. Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me. And you will find me there. Now, you know, split a piece of wood, it's like, you know, you can read this in layered depths. And it's true, like from a mystical perspective and even from a quantum physics perspective, if you split open any physical thing in this material world, you will find the light. And it's a conscious light. Quantum, like quantum packets of light. That is what makes up atoms and particles and molecules. All this solid matter, it's just light in space. It's crazy. So that light within us, that is the omnipresence of God. That is the life force. That's the electricity. That's the fire that enlivens us. It gives us the breath of life, the fire of life. And that consciousness, that electricity, it's conscious, it's sentient. That is the uniform consciousness that collectively unites all of us, right? It's the one. It's God's consciousness, and Jesus was completely unified with God's consciousness. So split a piece of wood and I am there, lift a stone and you will find me. And it's again that idea, labor over the Torah and the discussions over the Torah, and you will find me there. If you look, and the people who labored over the Torah, they were the Mishnah and the Midrash, and they would look deep and penetrate the surface level stories and meanings to find prophecy about the coming Messiah and like deep moral lessons. And so there's different layers, and sometimes it would be these deep spiritual technologies that the mystics would understand. And then there were like the traditional, like mainstream rabbinical interpretive genres that would talk, like that they would find the prophecies of the coming Messiah within all of the books of it was all over the Torah. It's like referenced over and over again throughout the entire Bible. The whole Bible is like an allegory leading up to the coming of the Messiah. So lift a stone, get into that oral Torah and those discussions, and they're going to be talking about the coming of the Messiah. Right? And he's like, you're going to find me there. You're going to find every little clue, everything, all the things that I am, all the things that we've done. It's there. You're going to find it peppered throughout everywhere. Right? Okay. So back to our saying. So if you become my disciples and listen to my sayings, these stones will serve you. For there are 5 trees in paradise for you. They do not change, summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. Whoever knows them will not taste death. And so the 5 trees, interestingly enough, you guys know I talk about this all the time, but my Kabbalah classes that I take through the Kabbalah Center, some of them are on demand, and some of them are classes that were recorded a long time ago. Some of them are current Zoom classes. And a lot of times I will have to watch the replays on the Zoom classes because they usually happen on nights that I'm at work. But it doesn't matter how like off I get from my classes. I might have to take a couple of days off here, like, you know, or a week off here or whatever. And I feel like, oh no, I'm off of class. I'm out of sync. I'm never out of sync. And so my class talked about this, that I watched part of this class while I was cooking like day before yesterday. And it totally talked about the 5 worlds that are the 5 trees. And our Secret Teachings of Jesus lesson on Saturday night always ends up lining up with the Sunday video I end up watching that tells us about the coming week's portion from the Torah and the commentary from the Zohar. And it always lines up. It's always like, even if we're off a couple of weeks and I have to skip a week here or there or whatever, it's like every week when we pick back up where we left off, or like the couple of weeks ago when I did like the same saying for like 3 weeks in a row. I was like, I don't know why I keep having to like say more about this, but it always aligns. And there was somebody that commented recently, and I know they meant well, but they were like, oh, it'd be really nice if you could like focus and maybe bounce your ideas off of someone. And I'm like, I get what you're saying, but like you're not understanding that I'm channeling this in the moment. And if I stopped and waited and like bounced ideas off of someone, you wouldn't have a daily video because things move too fast for that. So you're just going to have to accept me as not focused in your opinion. Okay. So this is the tree of life, and we talk about this often. But basically, this is the map of the cosmos. It's the map of reality. It's the map of the human soul. It's the map of the Godhead. All of these 10 circles, and you'll count 11. One of them does not count. It's an unmanifest. It's like a state of being or a trait that you can manifest and awaken or not. It's like getting it. It's understanding. It's insight. It's vision. It's prophetic insight. So that's that one. All these others are called Sphirot, or Sephirah, and they represent the governing forces of reality and like the 10 dimensions of consciousness, 10 dimensions of reality. Okay. So there are endless associations with each spirit, and there are like endless categorizing and groupings of these, it seems like. But one of the categories and groupings that we take away from the Tree of Life is called the Four Worlds. And there's really a fifth hidden world. And so the class that I was like listening to while I was cooking the other night was talking about there's 5 worlds. And the way that Rav described it, he goes, there's 5 universes. But I think that's confusing because people automatically associate that with this physical realm. And they're like, so there's 5 multiverses? No, the multiverses are all included in the physical world. So that's all one thing, even though there's like endless possible like multiverses, everything that's physicalized is in the physical world. So there's 5 worlds. There is the Adam Kadmon, which is the primordial whole of everything, and this holds the archetype of the ultimate divine human model, right? The archetype, the blueprint of the ultimate human vessel. Adam Kadmon, that's the archetype that basically makes up all of us, is in this primordial state before any sort of emanation or existence. It's in the state of wholeness, pure potential. Then there is the world of Atziluth. And this is the world of emanation. This is the world nearest to God, where all things emanate from. This is the highest of the 4 levels. And that is here. That is up at the top here in Keter, where this is like all of God's light is just all encompassed in one whole indistinguishable thing. There's not anything other than God's light in this world of emanation. Everything that is created comes from the emanation of this world. So then we come to the next world, the world of Bria. And this is the first world where there are angels. And this is called the world of creation. And this is the world of causes. And so this world is like when God says, let there be light, like that is a cause, right? And then the effect is there was light. So up here, everything is so abstract that it can't express until there's more creation, more substance. So there are the archangels at this level. But the angels, everything at this level, all of the beings and the consciousnesses and the energy of the primordial, the supernal triad here, this world. So we're kind of including the Keter, but we're mostly focused on the supernal mother and father, Bina Hakma. So this is such a world that's so close to God that it doesn't have any sort of like self-awareness. There's no ability for it to break away or do its own thing. The angels at this level are almost not even self-aware. They're just a robotic consciousness that's like a concentrated energy that does one thing and one thing alone, right? So then the next world down is the world of formation. And this is the world of what is called, I believe that this, see, I'm very fuzzy on which spirit are grouped in down below because I think it's Zera and Pin because they're all also associated with the Tetragrammaton. And so the 5 here, so we've got Gevura and Hesed, and then Had and Netzach, and Tiferet. Those are a section called Zera and Pin. And this is where like kind of the heavenly realms and angels are that have a little bit more consciousness and self-awareness, but they're also kind of robotic. You know, they kind of just have the job that they do and that's it. So There's interaction here. There's movement going on. This is kind of where the action is happening, because up here, these are the pure forces that combine and then come down here, and the light starts to take on more specific attributes as it's taken through these different influences. So this is the world of formation. And then the world, the Sefirot of Yesod and Malchut are in the world of Sia, I believe. And I could be getting the specifics of these world groupings wrong, but generally you're understanding that the worlds that we're talking about, the 5 paradises, are groupings of these states of consciousness and experiences that we go through on the path to awaken this light within us. Challenges, trials and tribulations, all of it. Lessons that we learn. And so then Asiya is the world of action, and that's the final world. And so the world of action is like, there's the least amount of potential in this world because things are becoming physicalized, right? But then up here, it's like everything is in its endless state. It hasn't become formed yet. It's the world of formation. It's coming into form, but it's not finalized and finite until it actually takes material form. Material form is finite, and it is, it's got an expiration date, and it can be flawed, and there are variables, right? But when everything's unphysicalized, it's like it's endless, it's in its potential, and anything can happen. And that's why we get drunk on that potential state when we get into the dream world, where we're always fantasizing about things and never bringing them into fruition, because we're like, well, then it's limited, then it's so much better when anything's possible. But, once we get it into the material, then we see what it's really going to be like, A perfect example of this is, did you guys ever see that one Joaquin Phoenix movie where it was kind of like, it was following him around, and it was kind of a documentary about him, and you just kind of got an idea of like kind of how weird he is, and like you kind of felt bad for him, and I hate to talk bad about him, but I've always liked him as an actor, but he's an oddball in that movie, and he does some really effed up shit. But there's one part where he's like building himself up to be a rapper. And in his mind, he's fully confident in himself. And you're like, oh, he must have been working on some like rap songs. He must be like really doing it or whatever. And he books himself like a show. And it's like at a venue, and people are there, and he's like all like buck, like I'm going to get up there and I'm going to rap. And it's like he wasn't prepared at all. Like once he got up there, like in his mind, he had endless potential. He was the man. He was going to just bring it. And then when he got on stage, it was like, you're like, did you write any songs? Like, did you think you were just going to flow freestyle? Like once you got on stage, like no practice, like, and he just basically just froze. And it was just like, he was kind of like trying to jump in there and do something every night. It was painful to watch. And that's kind of like the material world, right? When things are non-physicalized, it could be anything. I could be amazing. I'm going to be an amazing rapper. I get there and it's, material world. The actual potential has been shown here, and this is what we got. Was not the full potential, right? So, and then it's limited. And then, that's why we're not supposed to physicalize God. We're not supposed to put a graven image on God, because God is limitless. God is nothing but endless potential, endless light, endless perfection, endless power, and generative life force and creation. God is so endless that he's so abstract that you can't even begin to imagine what God actually is. No gender, both genders. No form, but within every form. And form is within God. It's just like, so to try to have some idea of like a cartoonish sort of like depiction of God is very, very elementary, to say the least. All right. So this is a good time to start wrapping up. I don't think we're going to get into any deep study on the inner workings of the spirit. That is a whole nother course on its own. But let's read our passage again. We have the basic lay of the land, though. Like, basically what we're saying is that, okay, so, and I need to finish that thought. So Jesus said, for there are these 5 paradises, 5 trees in paradise, and they do not change winter or summer, and their leaves do not fall. So this is the eternal light. This is the eternal realm. It does not change. It is constant, and it emanates in its consistency. It does not change. We, the physical material world, we change, right? But the upper realms, they do not change. And so, like I said before, when a frequency is unchanging, it's more powerful. It taps into its higher dominance. And so if we were able to reveal the ultimate light of all of these dimensions within us, we would literally rise above the laws of nature and rise above the need to die, the limits of nature, because we would unlock our eternal quality, our eternal light. So, and the more that we work with these spirit, what it's doing is that it's breaking our shells of negativity that have shrouded the light of our soul, and then it breaks open and it reveals more of the light that's already in our soul, while it's reclaiming sparks that we lost to the adversary in the Garden of Eden during the fall. And we were all a part of that because Adam was the seed level of all of our souls. So he's the legend that seeds all the souls. So, where were we? So, whoever knows them will not taste death. So you will not perish in the afterlife, but you will have everlasting afterlife. And when we finally come to the end of our tikkun correction and we're finally perfected as a soul, we excuse ourselves from having to come back to the material realm to do incarnation after incarnation after incarnation to complete the tikkun work over lifetimes, right? We finally get off of that wheel because we finally hit a state of full correction, full balance, full consciousness, and we don't continue to pack on more spiritual debt, and then we correct all that we've already had, and then we reach that state of Mashiach, Christ consciousness. And then everything has been brought into redemption within us, and we've been brought to a place of peace and rest. We can rest within ourselves. We can settle in because the soul has been corrected. And so for this person who, for there are 5 trees in paradise for you. They do not change summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. Whoever knows them will not taste death. So these are energies that we work with that influence experiences that we have in order to bring about more consciousness, and the experiences show up, so they'll play out as specific lessons so that we can reveal the light of our soul by learning these lessons and adopting and perfecting the consciousness and the light within each of these different spirit, and each of them have their own unique virtuous essence, but when out of balance they will be a vice, right? So we have to bring them into balance, right? So it's a constant, walking the paths as they say, these paths that connect. And you're constantly working with one or the other and balancing them out. And the ones that are situated across from each other, they're like opposites, and we need to bring them into balance. We need to bring everything into temperance. It's like they kind of intercorrelate and mix together, and the mixture is the ideal balance, right? And so each of us are given like more of like one type of tikkun than the other. So they're all kind of categorized into the right hand and left hand column as far as like our tikkun correction. And the right hand column is the column of mercy and kindness and sharing, and the left hand column is the column of judgment. And so if you're born with a tikkun that is more of a right-hand column tikkun, then it means that you are an overgiver, that you share too much, and that quite possibly you don't feel like you're worthy if you're not giving and sharing. Like that defines your worth. And you, it's like you can't say no. And you're maybe over compassionate, and it's easy to walk all over you because of that. And so for the person who has a tikkun on the side of mercy, who is guilty of overgiving, like they're gonna have to learn more boundaries, and they're gonna have to learn the discomfort of saying no and disappointing people sometimes. And they're also probably gonna need to look out for themselves a little more, because they probably are depleted, and so they're not taking good enough care of themselves either, so they need to show themselves more love. Whereas a person whose tikkun is on the side of judgment is going to be more selfish. They're going to be more like about them. This is going to be the obviously more negative people in life, that their tikkun is obvious that they need to work on it. But their challenge is to become kinder and more giving and more selfless. And so everybody has, like, they're a little bit heavier in one thing than the other. And so it's all about bringing it back into balance. But ultimately there are two core tikkuns, which are either mercy or judgment. And then the details that are laid out in your natal chart will fill in the rest of the gaps and all the details about what other tikkun you have, because each of the astrological signs has like specific tikkuns related to those signs, and our houses that the planets and everything fall in, they're related to certain areas of our life, right? And so the natal chart is basically a workbook of this. This is all of your assignments here. So if you can learn this and learn yourself and decipher yourself and grow and evolve and change, then you will awaken, right? So just like Jesus said, blessed is one who came into being before coming into being, right? When you think about it, it's like coming into being, it's like once you return to the afterlife, you're like, oh, I've come into my fullness here. I'm in my full potential. But then like you're back in the state where you would be coming into being when you're waiting to come down to earth again to be born into a new body, right? It's like last week when we were learning about the beginning and the end, and Jesus was like, you're asking me about the end, but do you even know what your beginning is? There was, when you find the beginning, there too you will find your end. So here we go. So Jesus said, blessed is one who came into being before coming into being. If you become my disciples and listen to my sayings, these stones will serve you. For there are 5 trees in paradise for you. They do not change, summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. Whoever knows them will not taste death. And when you reveal that kind of wisdom and do that soul work in this life, that's eternal light that you're revealing. That will never perish. That can never be taken away from you. It is light that is added to your soul eternally, right? And that awakens a quality of eternal life within us. And even down to literally, like when we don't do the work, it makes us sick and we die sooner. The wages of sin is death. It breaks down the body. You know, it makes you sick. It shortens the days of your life, right? But as you do the work of your soul and revealing that spirit and working towards your spiritual potential and who you can be in this life, then that reveals more light force and more of that miraculous healing energy within you. It reveals miracles. It puts you above the rules and the laws of nature, and then you start brushing up against that miraculous realm, right? Where miracles happen. All right, you all. So let's read that one more time and then we're out. So Jesus said, blessed is one who came into being before coming into being. If you become my disciples and listen to my sayings, these stones will serve you. For there are 5 trees in paradise for you. They do not change summer or winter, and their leaves do not fall. Whoever knows them will not taste death. All right, you all, that is all for tonight. I will see y'all tomorrow for our weekly energy oracle forecast. And I'm sure then I will be excited and flabbergasted that it's all lining up. It's all synchronizing again this week. It never ceases to amaze me. And also it doesn't surprise me at all. All right, y'all, much love. Ciao.